Sadhu, sadhu, namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I want to tell you about a very important monk in our dispensation. And this monk is very famous for his desire and his keen wisdom when it comes to his position. But before we start speaking about what he was like and what kind of Dhamma that he practiced, we want to first talk about his story and how it all began. 2,600 years ago, the Buddha was residing in northern India. And during this time, he was wandering about with lots of monks. The Gautama Buddha had a collection of 1,250 monks in total who traveled with him when he was traveling around India. And just as we have today, when someone famous is traveling around the country, praise tends to follow him. With the Buddha, loads of people in the country began to hear that he was enlightened, that he was free from greed, hatred, and delusion. Loads of people found out that he didn't have any anger in his heart. He was free from jealousy. And in this way, loads of praise was carried around India. Eventually, the Buddha and his company of monks started circling a small town. And the name of this town was Tullakottita. And as he circled this town, the group of people, the villagers, they also heard that the Buddha was close by. And as soon as they heard the message, they gained a keen desire to go and visit him and listen to his discourses. And the group of people, they organized food, they organized flowers, they organized robes, and they went to go and see the Buddha and his company of monks. And when they arrived, some of them bowed and sat down to one side. Some of them bowed and announced their name. Others didn't greet him, but just sat down to listen to what he said. And the Buddha gave an amazing discourse, which I'll tell you about later. The discourse that he spoke about was something called the 4 summaries of the Dhamma. In this discourse, the Buddha teaches 4 main things that we can look out for in the world. 4 main things that characterize the nature of the world. And after the discourse, all the villagers, they were leaving after paying their respects, and they were extremely happy at the beautiful discourse that the Buddha gave. But there was one young man who decided to stay behind. This young man, while sitting and listening to the discourse, he realized that practicing this Dhamma, practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, is not something that's easily done living at home. So he wanted to become a monk. So he waited until all the villagers left, and he approached the Buddha. He approached, bowed, and sat down to one side, and the Buddha smiled. He asked the Buddha, "Buddha, I wish to become a monk." And the Buddha asked, "Do you have the permission of your parents?" Even today, you cannot become a monk without the permission of your parents. So the Buddha asked this young man, "Do you have the permission of your parents?" And he said, "No, I haven't asked them yet." Then the Buddha said, "Go get your permission from your parents and come back. I will gladly ordain you." This young man hurried back home, and he was the only son in the family. He was married with multiple wives at the time, and he was from a very wealthy Brahmin family in Tullakottita. This young man's name was Rattapala. This man hurried home and he went up to his mother and father and he said, "Today I've got to listen to the discourse of a Buddha, and I feel like I wish to be a monk. I do not wish to live at home anymore. The household life isn't for me." And to no surprise, the father or the mother, they weren't happy about their only son becoming a monk. They immediately showed their dissatisfaction in his decision and said, "No, son, you are our only son. We do not wish to depart with you, even if you are forcefully taken during death. How could we let you depart from us, even when you are alive?" And they expressed their concerns of him shaving his head and donning robes. But Rattapala's mind couldn't be changed. He had seen what the Buddha has said. He developed a keen desire to become a monk, and his mind couldn't be changed. So he asked again. For the second time, the parents declined. The third time he asked, the parents still declined. After the third time, Rattapala did something drastic. He said to his mother and father, looking straight at them in the eye, he said, "I'm going to sit down in the middle of this house, and I'm not going to eat anything. I'm not going to drink anything. I will lay here until you give me permission to become a monk." At first, the parents thought he was joking. This young man had lived a life of luxury. He didn't understand suffering. And as soon as the boy expressed his will to become a monk, they thought this was something temporary. So they let him sit down in the middle of the house, and one day passed. Even after one day, the family weren't concerned. They thought, this will end soon enough. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. 4 days passed. After 4 days, the parents noticed that he was getting weaker. He hadn't eaten any food, he hadn't drunk anything, and he hadn't moved from the living room floor. They began becoming concerned. They realized that this desire in the young boy, this young man, wasn't something small. They begged him again and said, "Look, you can live a life of luxury. You can spend this money and collect lots of merit. You can do loads of good deeds. You don't need to become a monk." And they insisted, not once, not 2 times. 3 times they insisted, but Rattapala refused. When parents can't fix their child into doing what they want, they sometimes rely on other people. So what the parents did was they went up to Rattapala's friends. They said, "Look, our boy, your friend, he's got this weird desire to go become a monk. You guys need to talk him out of it. You need to make him stop. He's at the living room floor on the ground right now. Go and convince him." So a whole bunch of friends arrived at the house and went up to Rattapala, who was weak on the floor, and said, "Look, what are you doing? This is nonsense. You can live a life of luxury with us. Our fathers are all merchants, and we are some of the most powerful families in the country. We can live very happily." But still, Rattapala's mind didn't change. The boys insisted once, not 2 times, but 3 times. A couple more days passed. And now, Rattapala's physical condition was getting worse. And the parents realized his mind couldn't be changed anymore. So what they did do in the end was they gave him permission. They gave him permission to shave his head, put on robes, and become a monk in the Buddhist dispensation. But under one condition. The one condition was, after he became a monk, his mother asked, we will let you become a monk, but please come and visit us after you do." Although this boy hadn't eaten in a whole week, he hadn't drunk anything in a whole week, as soon as he heard the words that he was allowed to become a monk, his body was overjoyed, his mind was overjoyed, and energy that he didn't have appeared. He got up straight away, left home, leaving all his ancestral wealth, leaving all of his paternal wealth, his maternal wealth, and also his beautiful wives, and he left. He left home and he arrived at the monastery. He went to see the Buddha. He told him that he had granted permission from his parents, and the Buddha gladly ordained him. Not after a long time, Rattapala was skillful, he was clever, he was ardent, he was diligent in his practice of meditation in the wholesome states. After some time, Rattapala became a fully enlightened monk. When a monk becomes enlightened, we use the enlightened to explain the nature of the mind. When the mind is enlightened, it is free from any form of defilements. What are defilements? Defilements are things that cloud the mind. Things like anger, jealousy, ill will, greed, lust, hatred, delusion, the want for praise, the hatred for blame, wanting lots of friends, not being happy alone. These are all things that defile the mind. This Rattapala monk, he worked hard and finally became an enlightened monk. And he spent a couple of years enjoying the bliss of liberation. He spent time meditating, knowing that he was free from any suffering in the future. One day, he decided that, and he remembered that he had made a promise. Now, monks and good people in the world, they don't break promises. He remembered that he had promised his mother that he would come and visit. In one of the discourses in the numerical form of the Buddha's teaching, in the chapter as follows, it explains a beautiful sutta about 4 kinds of people. These 4 kinds of people are explained using the simile of clouds. The Buddha explains that there are 4 types of clouds. The first type of cloud, it thunders, but it doesn't rain. The second type of cloud, it thunders and it rains. The third type of cloud doesn't thunder, but it rains. And the last type of cloud, it doesn't thunder or rain. This analogy is used to explain someone who doesn't break promises. People who break promises, make promises and break them, are like the clouds that thunder but don't rain. People who make promises and keep them are like the clouds that thunder and rain. People who do good things but never say a word to anyone about what they're doing are like the clouds that rain but don't thunder. But then you have the kind of people who don't make any promises and don't help anyone either. Those are the kind of people, those are the kind of clouds that don't thunder and don't rain either. So this Venerable Rattapala, he was a person that kept promises. So he went up to the Buddha and said, "Buddha, I made a promise to visit my mother when I was a layman after I became ordained. I need to go and visit." And the Buddha, using his own mind, he encompassed the mind of Venerable Rattapala. He examined the mind of his student, and he saw that there was no danger of Venerable Rattapala going home. His mind was completely free from defilements. He had attained what a monk rightfully goes to ordain for. He achieved the final goal. And after seeing that Rattapala was in no danger, he gave permission for Rattapala to go home. Venerable Rattapala, he took his bowl and his robes and he left the monastery after paying homage to the Buddha. And he started walking to his old village. And Rattapala hadn't had breakfast that morning. So when it comes to monks having breakfast or going for food, the normal tradition is the monk would take his alms bowl with his eyes lowered and his robe folded the way like I have, so the shoulder covered as well. They would go down the street and go from household to household, begging for food. And when monks beg for food, they don't actually go and speak to anyone. They don't go and actually ask for food, but they stay on the doorstep and with their bowl in hand and wait if someone wishes to give food. And Venerable Rattapala, he hadn't received any food throughout the village, and he finally arrived at the street that his old house was on. And he started walking down the street, and he arrived in front of his own porch. In front of the porch, the father, who had gotten a little bit older, a little bit wrinklier, was outside. The father turned and looked at the monk, but he didn't recognize him. He didn't realize that this was his son. Instead, he started hurling abuse at the monk. He said, "You bold-headed ascetic, you are the kind of people that stole my only son. Get out of this place. There is no food for you here." He abused the monk. He verbally hurled insults at the monk, and he went back into the house. Just as the father was going inside, the old maid who'd been working in this house as a slave for a very long time came out of the household, and she was throwing away some rubbish. She was throwing away some old porridge which had gone off and become rotten. And Venerable Rattapala, who was looking for food, he saw the old maid and asked, "Lady, is that porridge that you are taking, is it something that you are going to throw away? Is it something that you don't need anymore?" The old maid said, "This is old porridge, of course we don't need it anymore." And he said, "Oh, please put it in my bowl." One of the main characteristics of being monk is reducing the amount of desire you have. If you ever come to a monastery in Sri Lanka, before monks eat food, they chant a very beautiful verse. They chant a verse that goes something along the lines of Patisankha Yoniso. And in this verse, it describes the nature of eat food. So monks, when they eat food, they don't eat food for the taste. They don't eat food for the sake of intoxication, to become bigger, to become more beautiful. They eat for the sake of maintaining the body so that they can achieve the final goal. So not for the sake of intoxication, to become bigger, to become more beautiful. They eat for the sake of maintaining the body so that they can achieve the final goal. So for them, eating something like bad porridge isn't a problem. They don't belittle bad food, and they don't get carried away when it comes to good food either. So Venerable Rattapala, he asked for this old porridge, and this old maid, she walked up to Rattapala, and Rattapala was holding out his bowl, and she put the porridge inside Venerable Rattapala's bowl. And having putting it inside, while she was serving the monk, she saw the hands of Venerable Rattapala. She saw the feet of Venerable Rattapala. She saw the arms of Venerable Rattapala. She looked at Venerable Rattapala up and down, and her mouth opened wide. She dropped the bowl in front of her hands, and she ran back into the house. Because although the father didn't realize that this was the son of the family, the old maid, the old slave that had been working here, immediately recognized this was their son. She hurried back into the household and went up to the mother and said, "My lady, your son has arrived." As soon as the lady heard these words, goosebumps went all across her body. Her hair stood on end. She went up to the father and grabbed his hand and said, "My husband, my old maid says our son is outside." The mother went up to the old lady, the old maid, and held her hand and said, "If what you are saying is true, you are free from being a maid, you are free from being a slave." And the mother and father went outside. And indeed, who they saw was a son that had left home. As soon as the father saw that the son, he realized what had happened. He said, "Why are you eating this old porridge? We are from a wealthy family. Why couldn't you come inside? Please join us for a meal." But like I said before, monks don't differentiate between good food and bad food. As long as the food is able to maintain the body, to help attain enlightenment, that's good enough for them. And Venerable Rattapala said to his father, he said, "I have eaten for today. I am no longer in food. I'm no longer in need of food. And as soon as the father heard this, he was distraught. He hadn't seen his father, and he hadn't seen his son in years, and he had got an opportunity to offer him alms, but he couldn't make use of it. Then what he did was he said to his son, Venerable Rattapala, please, we invite you for a meal tomorrow. Come back tomorrow and we will give you food. Venerable Rattapala, he consented in silence. The word consented in silence is very special there. When monks agree to something, they don't normally say yes or no, yes when it comes to agreeing. This is the nature of a Buddha too. They consent using silence. So Venerable Rattapala, he consented in silence. And after taking the porridge, he went on his way back to the monastery. And while Rattapala was in the monastery, his father started making arrangements at home for tomorrow's big meal. But Venerable Rattapala had something else on his mind. He had another plan. What he did was he gathered all the gold that he owned. He gathered all his paternal fortune, his maternal fortune, and he got all the gold and bullion from his ancestors, and he laid it out in the living room, and he covered it up with a mat. Then he went up to the old wives of Venerable Rattapala and said, look, Master Rattapala is coming back tomorrow. I want you to wear the most beautiful clothes that you own, wear the most beautiful ornaments, wear the things that were most favorite of Rattapala. What the father was trying to do, he still wasn't happy that Venerable Rattapala was a monk. He wanted to entice his son to come back home. So he made preparations of gold and women to try and bring Venerable Rattapala home. As the night progressed, in the early hours of the morning, they made food and luxurious offerings, and they prepared a feast to make Rattapala happy. The following lunchtime arrived, and Venerable Rattapala arrived with his serene complexion, with his eyes lowered, carrying his bowl. He calmly walked into the household, and he sat down on a seat that was prepared for him. And as soon as he sat down, servants came up to him, and the father commanded these servants to lift up the sheets that were covering the gold. And he said to Venerable Rattapala, Venerable Rattapala, this is your mother's gold. And it was a mountain of gold. This is my gold. And it was another mountain of gold. This is your ancestral gold. This is all the gold that you've received from your grandfather, your grandparent, your grandmother, and all your family. Look at all this gold. Please come back home and you can live a beautiful life. You can even do merit. You can do good things. You can help homeless people. You can give to charity. You can share kindness. Just use this money. Why do you have to become a monk to do these things? And Venerable Rattapala, he looked down on the floor, and the floor was shining in gold. He smiled. He said to his father, if you understood the instruction of the Buddha, you would realize, even if this gold that would have been mine, even if it was carried into the middle of the Ganges and washed away into the middle of the sea, I still would not care for it. All this gold brings nothing but suffering. It brings nothing but attachment. There is no happiness in this wealth. And in this way, he discarded his father's gold and bullion. Back in India during this time, it was the custom to marry more than one person. And when Rattapala had a few wives, it doesn't explain how many he had. He had a few. And I assumed with his wealthy nature, they were extremely beautiful. And they were all dressed up. They came up to Venerable Rattapala, and one of the most beautiful wives approached Venerable Rattapala, knelt down on the ground and grabbed the feet, crying and sobbing, and said, Rattapala, Rattapala, why do you leave us? What kind of celestial nymphs are you going to receive by living as a monk? So the idea of this family was that people become monks not for the sake of happiness that's free from sensual pleasures. This family thought that he's practicing to become a monk so he can go to heaven, so he can enjoy celestial maidens, celestial nymphs is the translation. Rattapala, he looked down at his old wife and said, "Sister, I do not practice this Dhamma. I do not practice the path of the Buddha for the sake of celestial nymphs. I practice for the liberation of mind." As soon as this beautiful lady, she was rather dramatic, as soon as she heard the words sister being referred to as a sister by the old husband, she fainted down onto the ground. And all the other wives started crying as they realized that he would never come home. Rattapala, Venerable Rattapala, he looked at his father and said, "Father, if there is a meal to be given to the Sangha, please give it. Please do not harass the Sangha." After this happened, the father gave the food and the mother offered food, and they realized they couldn't do anything to bring Venerable Rattapala home. If you ever come to a monastery, you'll know that it is a custom. After you give alms, after you give food to a monk, they will explain the Dhamma to you. They will explain some of the teachings of the Buddha. So after Venerable Rattapala enjoyed this food, he explained a couple of verses of the Dhamma, and I'm going to read them out to you, okay? He says, "Behold a puppet pranked out, a body built up of sores, sick, an object for concern, where no stability abides." He's saying this body is like a puppet. He's saying that it's empty on the inside. He says it's a collection of different wounds tied up together. If you look at each portion by itself, there's nothing beautiful about it. He says it's something that becomes ill. He says it's an object of constant concern, where no stability arises. When he's referring to stability, he's saying that the body becomes old. He explains a selection of 4 verses. I'm not going to read out all of them for you. But in the end, he says, "The deer hunter has set out the snare, but the deer did not spring the trap. We ate the bait and now depart, leaving the hunters to lament." It's not talking about deers here. What it's saying is the world offers loads of beautiful things. These things look beautiful, but really they produce a lot of suffering that's associated with the attachment that it produces. He's saying this, the sensual pleasures in the world are like the deer hunter. And the bait is like sensual pleasure itself. But what a wise person does, he doesn't get caught up in sensual pleasure. He doesn't get caught up in it. He avoids it. This is the nature of the wise person. And after this, Venerable Rattapala, he gets up and leaves. He leaves the household, and there's no other moment that's known for him to come back. He doesn't visit his parents again, I think. After this, he goes to a very beautiful garden in northern India, which is called the Mrigachira garden. This Mrigachira garden belonged to a king called King Kauravya. And King Kauravya was someone who knew Rattapala, who knew about his wealth and knew about his family. And he often would go to these gardens to enjoy himself in the luxuries of being a king. And the king was already residing there. And while the king was there, on the other side of the park, Venerable Rattapala decided to spend the day there in meditation. He wanted to take a rest in the beautiful groves. So he went there. And after Rattapala sat down under a tree, because he was from a famous family, there was commotion. People started hearing that he's sitting there and he was wise. And soon enough, the message arrived at the king. And the king wanted to see Venerable Rattapala and said, "Let's go and see him." the king went up to Venerable Rattapala, and this is where we start the most beautiful part of the discourse. This is where the build up to now was the explanation of Rattapala's life story, his dedication to become a monk. But this is what he saw. This is the Dhamma that he saw. This is the thing that we have to memorize and try and see outside in the world. So the king goes up to Venerable Rattapala and says, Rattapala, I'm very confused. He says, in this world, people become monks for 4 reasons. This is the king's opinion, okay? This isn't the correct opinion. The king says people become monks for 4 reasons. The first reason is because they're old. When they're old, they can't survive on their own. And they get lonely. And because they're old, burdened in years, close to death, people decide, okay, I'm going to go join the community of monks. It's a peaceful way to live. It's one of the reasons. The king says the second reason some people become monks is because of sickness. Monks get free medicine. So some people become sick and ill and they don't know what to do with their lives, so they become monks. That's the second reason. The third reason that the king explains is a loss of wealth. When people don't have any money, they see that monks survive without money. They survive by begging for food. And the king says a lot of people become monks because they don't have money. And then the last reason is because of the loss of relatives. Some people lose family members, sons, fathers, daughters, sisters. And when this happens, because of the loneliness, they decide to become monks. But what's the confusion part? The king says, Venerable Rattapala, I know your family. I know who you are. I know the wealth that you had. You are still so young. People in this world become monks because they're old. You're not old. Why did you become a monk? He says, people in this world become monks because they're sick. You're healthy. Why did you become a monk? People become monks because they don't have money. People don't become monks because they don't have relatives. You are one of the most wealthiest families in this country. You have wealth. Why did you become a monk? And lastly, you had wives, you had family, you had lots of relatives. Why did you become a monk? Venerable Rattapala, he smiled. And this is where he explains the 4 summaries of the Dhamma. The reason I became a monk, the reason I became an ascetic in this Buddhist dispensation was to complete the holy life, to become fully enlightened, because I saw 4 things in this world. The first summary of the Dhamma, and try really hard to remember this, the first summary of the Dhamma is, I'm going to read it out from you in the sutta, okay? Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. That's the first summary. Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. Number 2, life in any world has no shelter, has no protector. Number 3, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave everything behind and pass on. And number 4, life in any world is incomplete, insatiable, and it is the slave of craving. I saw these 4 truths. I saw these 4 summaries. This is why I became a monk. But the king didn't have the wisdom of Venerable Rattapala. But he did have enough questions. He did have enough wisdom to ask the meaning behind this. So when it comes to the modern day now, sometimes when it comes to religion and philosophy, as soon as we hear something and we don't understand it, we reject it as a philosophy. We're not willing to investigate it. But this king decided to investigate it. He said, Venerable Rattapala, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean life in any world is unstable and swept away? What does it mean to be swept away? Venerable Rattapala asks, King, was there not a time when you were young, when you were skillful, when you could ride an elephant, when you could hold a sword in battle, when you were a perfect archer with great vision who could shoot long distances, a person that was formidable inside the war front. Weren't you someone that was like that? But what is the case now? Are you still able to hold a sword? Are you still able to hold a shield? Do you have the strength that you did have before? The king replied, back when I was a soldier, I was formidable. I even thought I had supernormal strength. I was perfect in archery. I was perfect in swordsmanship. But now I am no more. And he laughed. My body has become weak. My body has become old now. And when I think about putting one step here, my foot goes elsewhere. I think about placing my foot there, and my foot wobbles. I can't even walk properly. The venerable monk smiled and said, this is what is meant, but life is unstable and it is swept away. The term swept away is used because of the nature of to grow old. We don't have control of old age. We get carried along with the current of old age. And Venerable Rattapala said, I saw this. I saw that life is unstable. This is why I became a monk. The king then said, okay, I understand. But you said that there's no shelter in this world, there's no protector. What do you mean? How can this apply to me? I have infantry, I have cavalry, I have ships. I have people who are willing to give up their lives for me. I have an army. I have guards who protect my bedroom day and night. He doesn't visit his parents again, I think. After this, he goes to a very beautiful garden in northern India, which is called the Mrigachira garden. This Mrigachira garden belonged to a king called King Kauravya. And King Kauravya was someone who knew Rattapala, who knew about his wealth and knew about his family. And he often would go to these gardens to enjoy himself in the luxuries of being a king. And the king was already residing there. And while the king was there, on the other side of the park, Venerable Rattapala decided to spend the day there in meditation. He wanted to take a rest in the beautiful groves. So he went there. And after Rattapala sat down under a tree, because he was from a famous family, there was commotion. People started hearing that he's sitting there and he was wise. And soon enough, the message arrived at the king. And the king wanted to see Venerable Rattapala and said, let's go and see him. The king went up to Venerable Rattapala, and this is where we start the most beautiful part of the discourse. This is where the build up to now was the explanation of Rattapala's life story, his dedication to become a monk. But this is what he saw. This is the Dhamma that he saw. This is the thing that we have to memorize and try and see outside in the world. So the king goes up to Venerable Rattapala and says, Rattapala, I'm very confused. He says, in this world, people become monks for 4 reasons. This is the king's opinion, okay? This isn't the correct opinion. The king says people become monks for 4 reasons. The first reason is because they're old. When they're old, they can't survive on their own. And they get lonely. And because they're old, burdened in years, close to death, people decide, okay, I'm going to go join the community of monks. It's a peaceful way to live. It's one of the reasons. The king says the second reason some people become monks is because of sickness. Monks get free medicine. So some people become sick and ill and they don't know what to do with their lives, so they become monks. That's the second reason. The third reason that the king explains is a loss of wealth. When people don't have any money, they see that monks survive without money. They survive by begging for food. And the king says a lot of people become monks because they don't have money. And then the last reason is because of the loss of relatives. Some people lose family members, sons, fathers, daughters, sisters. And when this happens, because of the loneliness, they decide to become monks. But what's the confusion part? The king says, Venerable Rattapala, I know your family. I know who you are. I know who you are. I know the wealth that you had. You are still so young. People in this world become monks because they're old. You're not old. Why did you become a monk? He says, people in this world become monks because they're sick. You're healthy. Why did you become a monk? People become monks because they don't have money. People don't become monks because they don't have relatives. You are one of the most wealthiest families in this country. You have wealth. Why did you become a monk? And lastly, you had wives, you had family, you had lots of relatives. Why did you become a monk? Venerable Rattapala, he smiled. And this is where he explains the 4 summaries of the Dhamma. The reason I became a monk, the reason I became an ascetic in this Buddhist dispensation was to complete the holy life, to become fully enlightened, because I saw 4 things in this world. The first summary of the Dhamma, and try really hard to remember this, the first summary of the Dhamma is, I'm going to read it out from you in the sutta, okay? Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. That's the first summary. Life is in any world is unstable. It is swept away. Number 2, life in any world has no shelter, has no protector. Number 3, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave everything behind and pass on. And number 4, life in any world is incomplete, insatiable, and it is the slave of craving. I saw these 4 truths. I saw these 4 summaries. This is why I became a monk. But the king didn't have the wisdom of Venerable Rattapala. But he did have enough questions. He did have enough wisdom to ask the meaning behind this. So when it comes to the modern day now, sometimes when it comes to religion and philosophy, as soon as we hear something and we don't understand it, we're not willing to investigate it. But this king decided to investigate it. He said, Venerable Rattapala, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean life in any world is unstable and swept away? What does it mean to be swept away? Venerable Rattapala asks, King, was there not a time when you were young, when you were skillful, when you could ride an elephant, when you could hold a sword in battle, when you were a perfect archer with great vision who could shoot long distances, a person that was formidable inside the war front? Weren't you someone that was like that? But what is the case now? Are you still able to hold a sword? Are you still able to hold a shield? Do you have the strength that you did have before? The king replied, back when I was a soldier, I was formidable. I even thought I had supernormal strength. I was perfect in archery. I was perfect in swordsmanship. But now I am no more. And he laughed. My body has become weak. My body has become old now. And when I think about putting one step here, my foot goes elsewhere. I think about placing my foot there, and my foot wobbles. I can't even walk properly. The venerable monk smiled and said, this is what is meant, but life is unstable and it is swept away. The term swept away is used because of the nature of to grow old. We don't have control of old age. We get carried along with the current of old age. And Venerable Rattapala said, I saw this. I saw that life is unstable. This is why I became a monk. The king then said, okay, I understand. But you said that there's no shelter in this world, there's no protector. What do you mean? How can this apply to me? I have infantry, I have cavalry, I have ships. I have people who are willing to give up their lives for me. I have an army. I have guards who protect my bedroom day and night. What do you mean that there's no protector in this world? The venerable monk said, do you have any chronic illnesses? The king replied, yes, I do. I have a wind ailment. King, when you have this wind ailment, you might be surrounded by family, people who love you, but even by soldiers, even by the best medics in the world. But when you are experiencing the suffering of a chronic illness, do you have to experience it by yourself, or can you share it with other people? When this illness comes, it feels like my body is being torn apart. There's no one but me. I alone experience this. King, this is why I say there is no shelter in this world. There is no protector. When it comes to suffering, you have to experience it by yourself. Seeing this is one of the reasons I became a monk. The king didn't understand why he said you have to, there's nothing in this world itself. The king said, your Venerable Rattapala, I have gold, I have bullion, I have diamonds, I have rubies, emeralds, and loads of valuable things. But you say I own nothing. What do you mean I own nothing? Venerable Rattapala said, anything that we own, anything that we have in our lifetimes, we only carry it until we go to our grave. No matter how much we own, no matter how much power that we had, after we leave something behind, someone else will inherit it. Someone else will take it. It will no longer belong to us. Everything, you spend your whole life collecting things. At the end of it, all you get to do is leave it behind. In this way, life in any world has nothing on its own. One has to leave everything and pass on. And this last one is my favorite analogy. The monk says, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, and the slave of craving. What does this mean? Insatiate, it means non-satisfactory, unsatisfactory. It means that no matter what we do, the mind is never satisfied. But the king didn't understand this. And our venerable monk, he explains this. He says, King, if someone from a trusted advisor from your northern region, if he were to come up to you and say, there is a kingdom in the north of this country that is weak when it comes to cavalry and infantry, but there's lots of gold, there's lots of bullion, there are loads of beautiful people, loads of vegetative ground, fertile ground. If you wished, you could capture it. Would you desire to capture it? The king said, yes, I would capture it. After you have captured this region, if another man, a trusted advisor, came from the east and said the same thing, would you want to capture it? He said, yes, I would. If someone came from the south, from the west to the northeast, and all the cardinal directions, would you want to capture it? He said, yes. And after you've captured a lot of region, if someone, even if your kingdom is so massive, if someone were to ask you, shall we capture this? Would you agree or wouldn't you? He said, you would. The king said, I would. In this same way, our desires, they don't ever come to an end. There's no satisfactory nature of the mind. It just moves on from one moment to another. In Buddhism, there is no idea of self. There's cause and effect, which produces the illusion of self. In the same way, craving, desire, it's all fueled by cause and effect. As soon as the causes disappear, the effects disappear too. So just like the same way, after someone buys their first bicycle, they want to buy a motorbike. After they buy a motorbike, they want to buy a car. After they buy a car, they want to buy a nicer car. After they buy a nicer car, they want to buy a collection of cars. Desire is always something that changes, but it's never fulfilled. The Buddha explains it's like a river, a constantly flowing river. It never stops. The king, after hearing this, he was amazed. The monk said, these four things, Because the life in any world is unstable and swept away, I became a monk. Because life in any world has no shelter and no protector, I became a monk. Because life in no world has nothing on its own, there's nothing that I can own, I became a monk. And lastly, this mind can never be satisfied in these ordinary ways. This is why I became a monk. King Karavya was amazed by the end of these four truths. And he learned and remembered these four truths. Out of this whole discourse, we might not be able to remember all of it, but remember those four summaries. And while you're out there in the world, try and see these things outside the world. Is the world truly a place where things are swept away? Is the world really a place where you leave some things behind? Is desire something that really cannot be satisfied? You don't need to believe it because I say it, or even because the Buddha says it. You only have to believe it once you see it for yourself. So remember these four summaries and try and look out for them in the world. At the end of this discourse, the Buddha, Venerable Rattapala, speaks some verses. And they're really, really beautiful, so I'm going to read them out to you. It will take some time, but try and listen to the end of the discourse. And pause and rewind, because some of these, the person who translated these books, he spent a good couple of weeks sometimes translating two sentences, because the translation is so difficult when it comes to giving the same connotation from Pali to English. So listen carefully. I see men wealthy in the world, who yet for ignorance give not their gathered wealth. Greedily they hoard their riches, longing still for further sensual pleasures. A king who has conquered the earth by force and rules over the land, the ocean bound, is unsatiated with the sea's near shore, and hungers for its further shore as well. Most other people too, not just a king, encounter death with craving unabated. With plans still incomplete, they leave their corpse. Desire remains unsatiated in the world. His relatives lament and rend their hair, crying, "Ah, me, our love is dead." They bear away the body wrapped up in shrouds, to place it on a funeral pyre and burn it there. Clad in shroud, he leaves his wealth behind, prodded with stakes he burns. As he dies, no relatives or friends can offer him shelter and refuge. While his heirs take over his wealth, this being must pass on according to his actions. And as he dies, nothing can follow him. Not child, nor wife, nor wealth, nor royal estate. Longevity is not acquired with wealth, nor can prosperity banish old age. Short is this life, as all the sages say. Eternity it knows not, only change. The rich and poor alike shall feel death's touch. The fool and sage as well shall feel it too. But while the fool lies stricken by his folly, no sage will ever tremble at the touch. Better is wisdom here than any wealth, since by wisdom one gains the final goal. For people through ignorance do evil deeds, while failing to reach the goal from life to life. As one goes to the womb and the next world, renewing the successive round of births, another of little wisdom, trusting him, goes also to the womb and to the next world. Just as a robber caught in burglary is made to suffer for his evil deed, so people after death in the next world are made to suffer for their evil deeds. Sensual pleasures, varied, sweet, delightful, in many ways disturb the mind. Seeing the danger in these sensual ties, I chose to lead the homeless life. As fruit falls from the tree, so people too, both young and old, fall when this body breaks. Seeing this too, O King, I have gone forth. Better is the recluse life assured. So remember these points in this discourse, and I know I've said it a couple of times, but remember those four summaries, and remember the story of Venerable Rattapala. I hope you enjoyed this discourse, and it lasts your benefit for a long time. Namo Buddhaya. One of the greatest deeds when it comes to giving is the gift of Dhamma. The material wealth donations and giving when it comes to Dhamma is very different. When you're giving Dhamma, you're helping people become free from desire, hatred and delusion, from anger, jealousy, and you're helping someone tame their mind. So no amount of gifts in the material world can make up for a gift that's given through the Dhamma. And first, before we convey merits, I know we're going to convey merits to all the gods. We want to share all of these merits with all the heavenly deities. May all the heavenly deities live long. May they be beautiful. May they also be able to understand the Four Noble Truths, and may Four Noble Truths in the Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.